Howdy doody. Welcome to Fieros Reborn, and I have refound my green Heart Chakra pendant stone thing. I made the pendant myself from string and glue, and there is a little story that goes with it, which was I lost it for about a year, and then it finally showed up when... This is such a strange story. Did I already tell this story on video? I'm not sure. But yeah, I finally found it again. Because when I first lost it, I was like, because I've got this set of 7 chakra stones, one for each of the 7 major chakras, and I just like looking at them, messing about with them, whatever, shoving them up my ass to see how each one feels. That's not accurate. It's not strictly accurate. It's not accurate at all anymore. No. So what am I saying? Yeah, so I lost this. I lost this one, and it was symbolic that I lost it around the time when my heart was trashed to pieces, in fact. So my heart was trashed to pieces when I lost... when I say lost, I mean... someone left my life, let's say, not to go to heaven or death realm, but they left me. Someone left me, so I lost them. Okay. When she left me, my heart went for ages. I was in grief. And it was strange because I was in such a deep grief, way stronger than any breakup I'd ever experienced. And we were only together for 2.5 months, but it was such a deep relationship. We had such a strong connection, and we're totally on the same page with regard to lots of different stuff, and just we felt like one person in 2 separate halves or separate forms or something. Not all the time, but for a lot of the time, yeah. And there was this great experience of magic that I'd not had perhaps ever with someone. This experience of magic and wonder and excitement and amazing fun and great sex and adventures and all this stuff. It was just an amazing relationship until it started going horribly wrong towards the end. Yeah, but overall it was a really deep, connected, meaningful relationship. I think meaningful is a good word. It was a very meaningful relationship. Like, we were very honest with each other, and we were kind of growing and healing and stuff at the same time. And yeah, it was a meaningful relationship. Yeah, so when we broke up, I just went into grief, massive grief. It seemed like maybe a lot of the grief was to do with things that were not related to her, but that she had triggered that. But then again, maybe it was to do with her, because we'd had such an intense relationship and such a deep connection, way deeper than I'd had with anyone ever before, because of the fact that we were coming from the same place, and it's hard to describe what that means, but it's like we were one being. We were like coming with 2 parts of the same being. So we would always seem to have the same viewpoint on external experiences. Like we would always be thinking the same thing or having the same feeling about something that happens in the world. The new experiences, I mean, like our previous past experiences were different, so we had different likes and different dislikes and stuff, and preferences and stuff and so on. But it was like it's like we saw the world through the same set of eyes during that time, and we laughed at the same things, we were happy about the same things, we were excited about the same things, yeah, we enjoyed the same things. And then my heart was very distressed when she left, and I grieved for a long period of time, probably about 6 months, really. I felt this feeling of misery in my chest here. And as the best way to describe it would be misery. Uh, Misery, sadness. It wasn't quite sadness because sadness for me, I feel sad when I cry, but the misery was just like a long-term feeling. It was seeming like it was always there, and it was just like in this chest area. And every day it would be there, this feeling. It started off really big, where I was completely shocked and I could barely do anything, and I was bedridden even from the grief of it. And then the misery feeling was like this feeling like it was raining. Yeah, it was like it was raining in my heart constantly. Feeling of rain, rain and mist, misery, just miserable feeling there. But I was practicing mindfulness of it, so I was always aware of it. So it never quite got the better of me, if that makes sense. So it was like I stayed with it, and there were times when I was like, oh my God, how long is this going to last for? Is this going to last forever? Like, is this just going to be here now? Is it just going to stay like this? But it didn't. But there were some times where I really thought, God, this is lasting a long time. But it did heal. It did heal. It healed with constant attention. So I constantly gave myself that attention, gave myself the time to feel that. I mean, it was unavoidable. It was such a strong feeling to begin with that I couldn't switch off from it. So I had to be with it. I had to attend to it. Yeah, and I had some sex and got drunk a lot. I went to Bournemouth for 6 weeks and basically messed around. Didn't actually achieve anything really while I was there. I achieved a couple of bits of stuff. I found out for myself that Bournemouth is a really good place for me in terms of my energy levels. It really made me much happier to be in Bournemouth. I loved the people in Bournemouth, so much more open. I developed good friendships with people immediately. I felt so much more open there. I could just be myself, and it was a strange experience. Like, I didn't experience judgment hardly at all, if at all, throughout the whole time I was in Bournemouth. I didn't experience anyone judging me at all for who I was, and that was such a strange experience compared with how it had been in this area, because whenever I'd been myself and expressed myself, mainly when I speak about the truth of what I've been through or what I'm going through or my viewpoint on life has always been judged as being a mad point of view. But when I got to Bournemouth, it was like a totally accepted point of view, and people were happy to listen, and we had fun conversations, stimulating conversations, and just open conversations and heartfelt conversations as well. Like with one guy, a friend I made there, we actually became really good friends, and it wasn't just a shallow friendship. We were actually talking about stuff that mattered to us. It was the kind of friendship that I'd always thought of a friend being. Someone who was there for you, who you were there for them, and you could share the struggles that you were going through daily or weekly or monthly, whatever, and that you actually you had each other's back. Like, I have felt sometimes in my friendships that I have other people's backs and they have my back occasionally, but it's like most of the people who I've met don't have much ability to care, but the people who I met in Bournemouth had a lot more ability to care, and they had a lot more ability to be non-judgmental, really, and just accepting of me. So it was great. Yeah. Now I had a lot of sex. Anyway, so that was a welcome distraction from lying in bed at home, grieving and sleeping from grief. And I took this with me. I took all my stones with me, and a lot of books and stuff to Bournemouth. Bournemouth is a whole story in itself, so I should go through that properly at some point on a video or series of videos. The Bournemouth Diaries or something, yeah. But we're way behind that on the journey, aren't we? So I took all these stones with me to Bournemouth, and I don't know whether it was then or afterwards, I noticed this one had gone missing. I was like, I've got all the other ones. I found all the other ones. Where's this one gone? And I thought maybe I'd left it in Bournemouth even, um, or I'd lost it. But I thought, oh, it'll probably show up. But every now and again, I was like, kind of like, I was considering to buy a whole new set of them because this one was missing. Um, I was like, because this is a really important one. This is the Heart Chakra, which is very important in terms of love and generosity and giving and abundance and intuitive wisdom, acting from the heart, following your heart, all this stuff. And mine was missing. So symbolically and metaphorically, it tied in really well with how I was feeling, because throughout that whole grief period, I felt like, and even before that actually, I felt like I was going through a very self-orientated approach, which is in contrast to mainly other-oriented approach to previously. So I went through a phase of like codependent other orientation, which means you're other oriented and you never attend to your own needs and wants and wishes, and everything you do, you think you're doing it for other people, whereas really there's always a selfish motivation underneath it. So you think you're doing things for other people, you think you're being helpful for other people for their benefit, but actually you're doing it for your own benefit, because you're getting a kick out of it or a pleasure out of it, whatever. But more than that, it's that my whole worldview was predicated, my whole worldview was founded really upon living my life in relation to others. The first relation was to other rather than the first relation being to self. So then I broke free of codependency, which was a hard task in itself, to start snipping ties of response where there's a lot of habitual responding that I was doing, habitual roles and habitual patterns I was playing, codependent patterns, which was like where I would respond as a role. I would respond in the old role of the family or the old role of the society, rather than being myself and being genuine, because I hadn't found myself genuinely. And then when I had found myself genuinely, it was a real challenge to bring the expression of myself into my relationships openly and honestly and genuinely sharing that out, because I would meet up with lots of different judgment and difficulty where people weren't happy with me being myself. I went through that for a while. And then so I kind of went through this real self-involved, you could say, there's a self-discovery, but also a self-fulfillment. So I needed to really fill up my own needs. I needed to do things for myself. I needed to be independent. I needed to explore who I was in terms of like just doing my own thing, really. Doing my own thing, experimenting with my food, my clothing. I went through I went through about like 5 or 6 completely different wardrobe styles. Like I went through a kind of hippie one. I went through a like what I went through a hippie one, a cool guy one, like with a leather jacket and black jeans and white top and stuff. And then I went through a kind of preppy professor type look as well, where I had this kind of brown oh man, what's it called? Suit jacket, brown blazer jacket thing, and like little shirts and stuff, whatever. But I'd always wear the brown jacket over the top of stuff, so it's like that was that look. I'm sure there were more as well. But yeah, there was another one or two, which was the one where I was trying to embrace my feminine side, where I started wearing more pink type of things, like salmon colors, peaches, pinks, oranges, yellows, stuff like this. Yeah. Oh, I also went through a sloppy phase where I wanted to have all clothes that were really sloppy. So I buy like purposely bigger jumpers, um, on purpose, and just have like these sort of long arms to my jumpers that I could just like flop in them and stuff. So I was exploring my personal style and how clothes made me feel, how the different colors of the clothes made me feel. And I like gutted my wardrobe as well. I just like got rid of like every time I went through a change of the style, I kind of gutted the whole wardrobe. Was pretty hardcore. Um, and now I kind of got like remnants of each phase, and I'm bringing back a different phase as well now, which is the what's it? It's a kind of checkered shirt and uh, smart jumper. It's the same kind of jumper that I would wear um, when I used to work in like corporate, wasn't quite corporate, but businessy type environments. So when I was doing smart work, yeah, when I had to look smart for work, I'd wear a jumper underneath my suit jacket over my shirt if it was cold. And so I'm bringing back that, and I want to bring back the trousers I used to wear at school because they were one of my favorite type of trousers. I used to have this. There's a certain particular pair of black trousers that I had at secondary school, or maybe even two of them, and they just make my butt look so good, and they fit so well. And it's just like I felt like really good. Like the fabric was nice, the way that the crease in the leg was always straight and neat looking, and wearing that with trainers, wearing those trousers with trainers, it just made my butt look great. I thought that was cool, man. Like, and then some of the other trousers I had weren't as good, so it's just this particular one or two pairs of a certain style of the black school trouser, was great, and I really loved them, and I want to bring that back. Um, yeah, I think the suit trousers I've worn since then have never quite fit correctly. So it always make my butt look big or tight or like it's bursting out of the thing. So yeah, and those were the days when I was slimmer. When I was quite slim actually. So who knows what the hell it'll be like now. But yeah, so that's clothing. Anyway, okay, and then so the heart thing was lost, and then I was actually going to make a different necklace to this. I had this idea years ago, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, maybe, I don't know, to make a little necklace with a coin on it, like a pound coin or a 50p or a £2 coin or something, to put so that it would go down into my solar plexus chakra area, so that I could have it stimulated there, and I could because the solar plexus chakra is supposed to be to do with self-worth and assertiveness and self-confidence, and like inner power, stuff like this, stuff like that, stuff like that, and it seems to be to do with money in terms of knowing your own worth and knowing your own value and sticking up for yourself, valuing yourself and your needs as a solar plexus type of chakra thing. And I was gonna go and make this necklace, which was basically going to be like this with a piece of string, but with a pound coin or a £2 coin or 50p glued onto it, or maybe even all three. I wasn't exactly sure. And I went to look for some shoelaces to find to make the pound coin necklace. And as I was looking for shoelaces, I rummaged around in the bathroom, and found this sat in my old wash bag, the one I took to Bournemouth. And I was like, I found it. And then I went and found some shoe string and made this necklace instead, because I also found that I didn't have any money didn't have any coins in the money drawer, or anywhere in my room. that were of the big enough denomination. So I was like, oh God, well, I'll make this one then instead. So I have. And this was actually a necklace that I wanted to make for that girl who left me. And I finally got round to making it. So if she's watching this video, you know who you are. This is the necklace that I was going to make for you. If I was going to make it for you, though, I probably would have made it in a more girly style, like with a chain rather than a neck, rather than a shoelace, like with a silver chain or something. Because I know you like silver. Yeah. So there you go. So that's the story of the Heart Chakra pendant necklace in full. And I'm very pleased. I feel like it's a symbolic. It means something. It means something like my heart is back, or my heart is healed, or I'm ready to love again, or my heart's in the right place now. I found my heart again. My heart has returned. My love has returned. My ability to love has returned. Stuff like that. I was hoping it was going to mean that the particular girl who I love, oh yeah, I love, damn it, still love. I wanted to. I hoped that it meant that she was coming back somehow. Like somehow the universe was trying to say that she's ready to return. She's ready. Maybe she is. Who knows? Well, she will let me know. And hopefully we won't fuck it up this time by being dicks to each other. Hopefully we both will have moved to a better place where we can be happy together without ruining it. Because we were both kind of like happy with each other, and then we were also ruining it at the same time by doing stupid shit with other people. Yeah, so that was bad. Like we were both flirting and whatever. We just weren't in the right place for a relationship. So although our relationship was great, the fact that we both weren't quite in the right place for it at the time just ruined it. And yeah, so it was fucked. And plus, I know it sounds like an excuse, but I was a smoker and I was heavily addicted to smoking, and it was really fucking with my emotions. It was making me really angry and irritable because I was trying to quit, and it was making me really angry and irritable. And I was directing some of that at her unnecessarily. And if I hadn't been a smoker at that time, or I'd been like, for example, where I am now, where I get hardly any anger anymore, that it would have been a much better relationship from the beginning. So who knows? Oh, well. Anyway, so this is back, so I feel good. I feel happy that it's back, because it's like, oh, I missed this, and now I'm going to keep it close to my heart, and I'm wearing it all the time at the moment, and hopefully I will continue to wear it all the time. Why say hopefully as though I'm not making the choice? I will wear it all the time until I decide not to. If I do decide not to, it's up to me. Good. Okay, so let's go back to Fieros' story time. I'm going to take the screen down, as in from my angle, because I was keeping up the, what do you call it? I've got a little preview window up as I do the video to see what's going on, because the video kept stopping in the background and the sound continuing on. And I just wanted to check if it was doing that or not. But my preference at the moment is to not be seeing my face while I'm doing it, because it's a distraction and I'm looking at my own face rather than being involved in the camera. So here we are, screen going down. It's just you and me, babies. Right, so where do we get to in the Ward 10 scenario? Quick roundup, really quick speed run through the whole of my life story from the age of 18 onwards. 18 was with Mrs. A. She cheated on me. We broke up. Then I went to work at a different job. I was working at Legoland. Legoland finished. I needed to get a job because I was in a band, and I had a car, and I needed to pay for things like rehearsal studio, strings, petrol, MOT, lights. My parents were paying for my tax and insurance at that time, No, they were paying for my insurance and I was paying for my tax, something like that on my car. Anyway, I needed money. I needed a job to get money, change job. I feel like it's strange that I should have to explain why I needed a job, because basically my preference would have been to not have a job and to just do what I wanted to do, um, with regard to my music and artwork at the time. Poetry, lyrics, art, um, maybe even stand up, but music most importantly. I would have just done that. If money was coming from another source, like if parents were happy to just support me, I would have just literally just focused on doing my music without worrying about um, working a normal job. And maybe I would have been happier that way as well. And maybe my life would have turned out better if I had been able to just focus completely on what I wanted to do. Which is where my life is at now, because my parents and my gran are supporting me financially, so I can do exactly what I want to do when I want to do it. Maybe that sounds like shit, but it's better than working a shitty job and being drained by that, because shitty jobs drain me big time. Any type of job drains me big time, to the point where I want to kill myself. So that's good. Right. So anyway, so I quit Legoland. Sorry, blah. I got into this new job. My bassist was also in that new job. He was the one who helped me get the job, because he was already in that place. He was working there before. He advised me to go put my CV in there. Boom, did that. Worked there as a waiter to begin with. Was quite excited about it actually to begin with. I was really loving it. I was loving getting involved in the company. Like, I was really keen on like being a very good company person. Like, I was really tying into the principles and beliefs that they had. So they had this kind of set of values or principles and beliefs thing, and I was like, yeah, this is wicked. Subsequently, I decided that was a load of bollocks. It was just some corporate nonsense. Their only real principle and belief was to make money at all costs. To make money, to make as much money as possible in the most efficient way possible. Yeah, and the whole principles and beliefs bit was just subsidiary to that. Basically, it was just that was just the flavoring of how to make as much money in an efficient way and in as efficient way as possible. The only reason that those principles and beliefs were there was because without them they probably wouldn't be making as much money as efficiently as they could be. So yeah, and I realized that the culture of the training that we were being given as salespeople, waiters, salespeople, was all just really geared around greed, and it was nothing. They were teaching hospitality and customer service, which was actually just geared towards selling the most expensive items possible, or the items with the highest margin. So it was never really, they would pay lip service to try and to fulfill the customer's needs and make sure they were happy and stuff and satisfied, but really it was just try to guide them to the highest value products, and try to guide them towards the products that we want them to have, rather than the products that they would genuinely want to have because they would genuinely like them and enjoy them. So I found myself lying a lot, basically. And we were also told as waiters that if your bill is higher, if you can upsell, so that the bill is higher, you'll get a bigger tip. Because people leave 10% usually on a tip, and that if the size of the bill is higher, then you'll get a bigger tip. So it was like, really, it was gross, man. Like, it's not like, okay, if the bill happens to be higher, that's great. It's like, no, work your way, manipulate the customer as much as possible and guide them subconsciously or guide them directly towards the things that are going to make the bill higher. Like, I don't know. And I started having this crisis of integrity basically about it, where I was like, I've realized I'm actually lying to customers now because they ask me what do I recommend or what's my favorite thing, and I just lie and tell them the biggest thing, the most expensive things on the menu. Whereas the truth is, I rarely ate that particular item. You know, like I'm only saying it because it's the most expensive thing on the menu, and I'm going to get a bigger tip if you uh, buy more stuff from the restaurant. And my boss is going to be happy with me because I'm making a bigger revenue for the company. Yeah. So I was like, oh, and then I also realized I believe it was during that time that I became a vegetarian. Or it might have been after that. It could have been during that time that I became a vegetarian. I'm not sure. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm working for this steak company that kills, I don't know, however many billion cows a year or something. And I was like, or million cows, sorry, not billion. And I was like, fucking hell, this is brutal. All these cows are being raised for the slaughter. And oh God, it's just horrible. I'm going to go get my thingy, duvet. And uh, they were saying stuff like about in the restaurant morals and ethics and stuff that they only get certain types of beef, like I don't know what grain-fed beef or something. I can't remember. Is that a thing? Corn-fed beef, grain-fed beef sounds like a thing. Pure British and Irish or something beef, and that was supposed to be a good thing for some reason. And I just felt like the company was full of bullshit. I was becoming full of bullshit because of the training I was given and what I was being asked to do, and then my own selfish motivations were like pushing me down a channel where I was becoming less and less real and less honest. And I also got told off by my boss on one occasion for expressing discontent with the company to some customers because they'd asked me uh, something, and I was just really honest about how I felt the place was being run, uh, and I got told off for that, which is fair enough. I think that was my fault. You know, that was not like there was no principle to that telling them that I thought the place was shoddily run. There was no principle behind that. That was just me being a dick, and and me wanting to moan and whine about things. Yeah, but so I was like, I don't I don't believe in what I'm doing, and I'm lying to myself, and I'm lying to customers, and I don't stand for this. This is not. It's not like I don't tolerate it and I don't stand for it. You know, it was like this is not what makes sense to me from my own values and understanding of life and principles and so on. So I was like, fuck this. Meanwhile, I was getting into a relationship with a guy, Mr. B, who worked at the same restaurant as me. He pursued me, and I went along with it basically. And I mean, it's like I don't even really know if I liked him or not. That's the truth of it. Like I just found myself going along with it. I mean, I presume I liked him, but I don't think I actively even decided or registered. It wasn't a conscious decision, or it wasn't a conscious understanding or knowing that I liked him. It was, and maybe I'm trying to excuse myself from it because I don't want to look like I was actually interested. But the way I experienced it at the time was that this person was into me, and I didn't have any other options that were working. So it was nice to have someone who was into me, I guess. Although to begin with, it was a bit like, what are you doing? You're just invading, and you're um, doing stuff I don't need, and it's kind of annoying that you're trying to get close to me all the time. But eventually, I just relented. And would you believe it? I think the reason that I actually even subscribed to that relationship with him was because I got stoned with a friend of mine who was also working at that restaurant, but who I'd known from secondary school. I got stoned with him one time, and I realized, I looked through my text messages on my phone, and I was like, I've been texting this guy a lot. And I said to myself in my head when I was stoned, I was like, I already am in a relationship with him anyway, because look at all these messages. I've been messaging him and replying. This is all, I am actually doing this. So I decided I already was in a relationship with him, therefore I should get into a relationship with him. Which, on reflection, is probably not the best way of going about it. I mean, I don't know. I just wish that I'd been more conscious, I suppose. I wish I'd been more conscious about my own feelings. I wish I'd been more aware of how I felt before I got into it. I wish I'd listened to myself longer. I wish I'd listened to myself at all. But I was just too eager to. I was so eager to get into a relationship after my last one had collapsed that I suppose I'd just go out with anyone. This makes it sound really bad. It makes it sound like I'm blaming everything on him and that I had no active part in it. And that I didn't choose to be with him at all, and I didn't say yes, and I didn't go and wank him off and be wanked off by him at the same time, a mutual wanking off. It makes it sound like I was a kind of helpless victim being pulled along by events, but in a way, it kind of felt like that. It felt like it's like every time I tried to be active, I felt all right. So what? Maybe I was a victim at a certain point in time because I just wasn't brain switched on enough to be making conscious decisions at that time. I remember throughout the whole of that relationship, never actively standing up for the things I consciously decided that I wanted to do or say. So one of the main things I remember having as a conscious desire was that I wanted to go to uni. I wanted to break up with that guy. In fact, I wanted to break up with that guy regardless of going to uni or not. I wanted to break up with that guy. I wanted to go out with these women who I was finding attractive. I didn't want to be tied down, for one thing. I didn't want to be in a relationship. After I'd got into the relationship with him, I realized I didn't want to be in a relationship. I just wanted to mess around sexually. Because that was a time in my life where I was starting to explore my sexuality as being a plural thing, like a bisexual type of sexuality. My desire was to mess around with guys and girls when I got to uni, and just in a more open way, like casual sex, casual flirting, casual stimulation. Yeah, I wanted to do that when I went to uni, and I didn't stand up for that. I wanted to break up with him. Certainly when I was on holiday. I went on holiday one time over the summer. The first summer. First summer of us being together. And I remember going, oh God, I really fancy this girl who is there. And I'm feeling really tied to my boyfriend at home. But the only reason that I stayed with him was because I'd made a commitment to him rather than the feeling of actually wanting to be with him. The only reason I wanted to be with him was because I had this idea of commitment that I didn't want to break, because I had this sort of thing at the time where I felt like I was a commitment phobe, and I felt like I had to commit to things like relationships or whatever because it seemed like I was trying to overcome a pattern of non-commitment, and I don't know where I got that idea from. Maybe it was because with Mrs. A, I was never fully committed to her. I was always flirting with other girls and thinking about other girls and stuff, and actively flirting with other girls, and I was never fully committed to her. I mean, I was committed to her in the sense that I never actually cheated on her or anything, but I was flirting a lot, and so there was a part of me that wasn't fully committed to her. And I think maybe when I got with Mr. B, I was like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could be committed, or that I wasn't a commitment phobe or something. I wanted to prove that I could actually stick to something, because stick to something, because there was a pattern in my past, in my childhood and teenage years, of kind of being told that I didn't stick to things. That for example, I wasn't allowed to get a guitar until I'd done a year's worth of piano lessons, until I'd done grade one in piano, or a year's worth of piano lessons or something. I had to do a year of piano before I was allowed to get a guitar and get lessons in guitar and stuff, because my parents felt like I didn't complete things, or I didn't finish things, or I didn't stick to things. Like I went to Cubs for ages when I was in primary school, Cub Scouts. But I stopped going for a period of like 6 weeks, and they wrote a letter to my parents asking me what the hell was going on, or they called up. No, they wrote a letter asking what the hell was going on, and I hadn't gone for 6 weeks, and I hadn't gone because I didn't like going. It was fine for a while, but then some bullies were there, and I kept getting bullied out when we're doing like games in the field, like in the garden thing, whatever. I kept getting punched and stuff, and chased after by one particular guy or two particular guys. And I think that's why I didn't want to go anymore. But I hadn't consciously realized that until way, way later. Like, I only realized that like this year, that was why I didn't want to go to Cubs, because I was being bullied out in the garden games, and that had been like subconsciously buried for many, many years before I realized that's why I didn't want to go to Cubs. Because now I remember I was being chased and like punched and stuff in the bushes by this dick when it was dark. So that's why I didn't want to go. And there were like mean boys there, basically, who I didn't want to hang around with. And some of the games felt a bit, there was like one, what was it, like a new kind of a new staff member who felt a bit oppressive or something, or the atmosphere was just a bit oppressive, and I was like, I don't want to be here. And I wasn't enjoying it so much. I enjoyed it way loads to begin with, like going onto all these camps and making fires and cooking marshmallows and stuff and whatever, and field games, running about and whatever. Yeah, and the whole tents and stuff, camping, orienteering, all like outdoor stuff was great. And I used to love going to the cub camp, cub camp, cub club camp, cub camp, cub scout, cub camp. I think cub camp is the right word. Cub camp. Yeah, we used to go on cub camp, like every, I don't know, every term or something. Like there'll be a little holiday thing, which was cool. And I used to like going away for the weekend, doing all this stuff like rafting. We built these rafts made out of wood and string and barrels and stuff. And we did canoeing, all sorts of like cool activities, right? And we'd have what would be called a wide game, which was a bit like a manhunt type of game, or a hide and seek type of game. There was always like some big field game towards the end. And there was this one particular cub camp area called Dorney Wood. Yeah, and in Dorney Wood, they had this like big. It was called a bomb hole, because I believe that a bomb had been dropped there in World War II, and they just hadn't bothered to fill the hole in. So it's just a massive hole in the woods, with like trees sort of dotted around the edge of it, and it's just this big kind of hole thing, like really, really big. So you could like run around the outskirts of it and go up the side of it. It was really cool. It was like so cool. And I believe we had like a fire in the middle there. Yeah, so I used to love all that stuff, right? And then like as I got towards the top of, like towards the end levels, the end years of Cubs, and I was a sixer, leader of the pack, not the pack, leader of my little group of boys, and I had to teach this. One of the activities was to teach the country code to a younger kid who couldn't read, and who was particularly thick, like stupid kind of thing, and I was like, oh my god, how can you not read? You're like 10 years old or something, or 7 years old, and you can't even read this stuff, and like you don't even know what these letters are. And for me, that was a culture shock because I'd never met someone who couldn't read before. Nowadays, I wouldn't be so judgmental, but being like a 12-year-old kid, having never met someone who couldn't read, that was really strange for me. And I was like, I suppose I felt like I'm not cut out for this because I don't know how am I going to communicate all this stuff on the page, and I'm supposed to teach you this, and you cannot read this, and I can't seem to explain it to you either. Like you don't really understand anything I'm saying because you're really dumb. And so I was like, oh god, maybe being a sixer was not the greatest thing in the world. So it's like suddenly having this responsibility that I didn't feel ready for, maybe. Although when I first got to be a sixer, I was like, yeah, wicked, this is awesome. I'm so proud of myself for getting up the ranks, and I had loads of badges on my arm. I had loads of badges. There was one or two other guys who had like way more than me, and they've been there seemingly for ages, and they just got like arms full of these badges, and I loved those badges, man. Those badges were so cool. Like every badge was like it meant something because you'd achieved this and you'd learned that and you'd done the activities related to it and you'd done a little project or whatever. It's like, yeah, all kinds of badges about all sorts of different stuff. It was wicked. And you had the ones on your chest and stuff as well. So you had like, oh god, I don't know, different ones. So you had like 4 different badges for something, and you had the one that was a sign to identify which pack you were from, which club group you were from, or something. It was a unique badge to that particular tribe. I don't know what the words are. Yeah. So I loved Cubs. And then, as I said, like towards the end of it, it just like was getting a bit mean. They're mean boys. Mean, big, brutish, mean boys who were dicks, who were bullying me. And I was like, I don't want to go, so I didn't go. And then I went to like one thing of Scouts, which was obviously the next one up, where I was really excited about Scouts to begin with because Scouts was like the next level. You could do all kinds of extra bad things, extra adventures, like longer camps, bigger fires, maybe guns. Oh yeah, we used to do rifle shooting in Cubs as well. That was wicked. I used to love a bit of rifle shooting, aiming the rifle bang and stuff. Cubs was awesome. But somehow Cubs has been like completely erased from my memory because of the bullying stuff that happened. And also Scouts, I went to the first session of Scouts after Cubs to see if I was going to go to it. And why didn't I think there was 2 reasons why I didn't want to go to it. One, everyone was massive compared to me, and I was used to being the sixer, which is like the top of the thing. When you're like top of the food chain, apart from bullies, but you're like top of the food chain, you've got responsibility, and then you move into a next level of social status, social group, whatever, and you're the run to the pack again. I was that, so I was like the smaller one, and everyone was like massive, and that was really threatening to me, because I think like Scouts was more like secondary school age. I think basically from kind of 12 or 13 to maybe 18 even, or 16. So like some of the boys who were at the top end of the thing were like really big and kind of in between childhood and adulthood. So they're adolescent, proper kind of, big, tall, some were even muscly, bully type of people, a bit rough. And I was just like, I don't like the feeling of this at all. Also, we did this, I remember it to this day. We did this exercise, and I've actually done this exercise in a job interview situation as well since then. We did this exercise where you had a list of items. Okay, so the scenario was that you have been placed into, like you found yourself on a desert island, basically. So it was an imaginary scenario that we were given as a group. You've been washed up on a desert island, here's a list of items to choose, and you can only pick like 3 or something, or 5. Let's say 5 items from this list of 20 items that you would choose to have if you were to be washed up on a desert island. Like, what would you have put in your pack on an adventure that happens to be like end up washed up on a desert island, right? So there's this list of stuff, right? And I chose, being stupid and naive, I chose brandy to take with you on the trip, because my philosophy at that time, not knowing about alcohol being a very dehydrating thing, my philosophy at that time was, well, it's a liquid and you should drink it because you need to stay hydrated. But obviously, being an idiot and a child and naive to alcohol at that time, not knowing it was dehydrational, yeah, whatever. Like, that was a stupid thing to put. So I got told off, or it was just wrong, and I was like, oh God, how can I have got that wrong? Because I just felt like that was such a crucial question to get wrong that I just thought, man, I am not in the right place. All these people are bigger than me, and I don't know anything, and it feels rough, and it's different, man. I don't like it. So I was like, nah, okay, I'm not going to Scouts. How did we get onto Scouts and Cubs? Fuck. Oh, well, I was trying to do a quick roundup of how the story got to where it was. Right, so I went out with Mr. B, had a horrible relationship with him after a while. I didn't stand up for my conscious desires or my conscious needs, because I was living in an other-oriented, codependent paradigm where there was a sense of enmeshment with other people. So, like, I'm only okay if you're okay, that kind of thing. I'm not just okay in myself. I'm only okay if you're okay, which means that you just like constantly in a mess with other people all the time, because you're trying to make sure they're okay, and you're trying to get okay by making sure other people are okay, or doing things to make other people okay or help them be okay, whatever. And so you're like, if other people aren't okay, then you're not okay. So, and if they're not okay with you, then you're not okay with you. It's like really where you're in a merge with other people. Yeah, and then, oh God, this doesn't really make sense. It's more making sense thematically, I suppose. And then, okay, so I overcame that type of pattern long term, through therapy, and then self healing or self discovery. Self discovery and self learning by reading books and or listening to audio programs and stuff about codependency, and going to meetings, Codependence Anonymous meetings, and therapy, as I said, counselling. I learned to be okay regardless of how other people were in themselves, and also regardless of how other people were in response to me. So I'm still okay if someone hates me. I'm still okay if someone likes me. My emotions come from me. They don't come from the outside world. So it's like I'm more in the driving seat of what I do. Whereas before, everything was like tied into how other people were perceiving me and how other people were feeling about me and what other people were doing. Like everything was like other referential, referring to other rather than referring to self, being self-referential. So if anything, this story is about that journey from codependency to self-dependency. I mean, in terms of decision making and emotional well-being, because you can't fully be self-dependent in the world, because that doesn't even make sense. You go to a shop to buy something, you're dependent on the shop, you're dependent on other people. Everyone is dependent on other people to survive and to live, because that's how society works. And even if you were on a desert island, you're still dependent on the world in as much as you need food to eat. Otherwise you'll die. So we're constantly dependent on the world. We die if we run out of air. We are dependent on the world physically. And we are dependent on the world emotionally to some extent as well. We feel better when we have company and other people around us, and good friendships and good relationships and a good sex life and stuff. So there's always an element of dependency in everyone's life, in every level of their life as well. So, like, I'm dependent on what the shops have available to some degree as to all those style choices I went through. I was dependent on what the shops had available. I could have made my own stuff, but realistically, I didn't have the skills. So even though I was going through a self-dependency thing, I was still dependent on what was there, what was available in order to make the choices that I made. Yeah, but I came to this kind of sense of okayness in myself, and I knew that I was the one who was making decisions on my life. And now I'm coming to a place where I'm starting to bring back an other it's not dependency so much, it's more like being more involved with other people, more there for other people. But it's like I'm starting to bridge the gap between self-reference and other interaction. So I'm moving towards more of a, what do they call that thing? Interdependent thing. So there was a period of time when I wouldn't get any feedback from anyone about anything. I wouldn't let anyone make any of my decisions for me either. It was all like my decision. I'm making choices because I've never really made choices before in my life. It was very much me oriented, self needs, self desires, self feelings, self wishes. And for a period of time, like other people's desires, I fucked them off. Like I cannot, what do you call that word? Accommodate for other people's needs and desires anymore, because a whole massive chunk of my life had been lived in response to other people's desires, needs, feelings, perceptions of me as well. So I just kind of like, oh, fuck everyone type of thing. It was really self-involved, self-absorbed, like, fuck the world, this is about me for once thing. And now it's like, because I did that, I filled up. I filled up on the inside. I filled up with a sense of self. I filled up with a sense of okayness. I filled up with a sense of being in my body and decision making. And I have started to let other people back in more. I've started to be less precious about the meanness of stuff. I've been less precious about I don't know, just it's kind of like less precious about meanness. I'm like, previously I was very protective over me and my rights and my needs and my wishes and my choices and my decisions, and like contrasted where my needs and wishes were always enmeshed with other people's needs and wishes. Like, as I said before, it was kind of just a chaos of being dragged around in kind of a ball of all the different people who I was with. And then like, as I say, went into the more self-dependent, self-referential thing, which I was like, fuck everyone, I will do everything independently from my own self. And then now I've moved into a more interdependent thing, I suppose. Or it's more like a sense of just not being precious about myself anymore. It's like I really am okay about myself now. I don't need to protect myself anymore from like I don't feel like I'm going to be derailed from my own truth or my own self when it really counts. But I can allow myself to just kind of go with the flow of what other people want to do much more, and not be like, I need to do it my way, I need to have it my way, um, I need to make sure that I get my needs met, I need to assert my needs. It's like, well, my needs are, I feel pretty full inside, so I don't have to be grabby for things all the time. Um, like, I can let yeah, here's an example. So a good example would be, uh, I let my mum make my food for me, and I let my mum do my washing for me and ironing and stuff for like most of my life. Okay, then I decided I wanted to become self-independent. self-referential, do things for myself, make my own choices, live independently of other people, right? And so occasionally my mum would do my washing for me or take my washing in for me. And I'd be like, don't do that. I really want to do that myself. That's my thing. I'm responsible for it. You know, I want to do that because that's a personal task. I would need to do that if I wasn't living with you. So I want to do it myself because that means something to me as a sense of personal pride in doing it, right? And then she kept kind of doing it every now and again. Mainly she was doing it because my washing was in the way of hers, as in like she wanted to put her washing on the line, so she'd take mine down to get it out of the way. Which still is kind of like, I would rather do that myself. But then there came a time where I felt like I was a bit less energized, and I kind of just relinquished. And I said, okay, I'll let you do that, because it came a point where it's like, well, I can do it. I could also let someone else do it. I'm not precious about it anymore. It doesn't really matter if someone else does it for me or if I do it. I can do it. Someone else can do it for me. I'm not getting a sense of self from doing it anymore. Whereas before I was getting a sense of self. I was like, I need to do this because I'm the one who's responsible for my life, and I need to do the things so that I feel like I am in control, and that I am in the driving seat of my life, and that I am responsible for my life, and I'm independent, right? And then I was like, I still like to do it myself, but I'm going to let other people, because my mum seems to kind of want to do that as well. So it's like I'm almost denying something that she wants to do by me doing it. She wants to do it because she wants to feel like a mum. She wants to feel helpful. She wants to get my damn washing out of the way of hers, and she wants to feel like she still has a role in my life in some way, of like a providing kind of role. So it's like, you know, I don't have to deny other people doing what they want just because I want to do what I want. And so it's like more in a balance. Like I'm not going to get annoyed at people if they help me, basically. I went through a period where I was like, I don't want any help from anyone. And then I'm like, you can help me. You can help me. Okay. I need help from time to time on certain things. And there will be a time in my future when I'm old where I will need to be able to accept help from others. So let's get into balance now. Accept help from others. Yeah. So I'm more in a kind of interdependent thing. And another aspect of it as well would be like isolation and then engagement. So I would isolate myself from my mum for a while because I felt like I needed my space all the time. My space, my emotions would get drained by being with her. Similarly with other members of my family, I'd be like, I skipped out on so many different occasions, um, birthdays, minor celebrations, like I don't know what there would be, like little outings and stuff that the family would go on in different chunks, because my family's sort of a bit split, in different chunks compared to how it used to be. So you got kind of my mum and my gran and I, and then my brother and his wife and his kid, and then you got like my dad and his girlfriend and her kid, um, and then you got my aunt and uncle, and then you got my nana. So they're all kind of, everyone's a bit more spread out than they used to be, because previously it was like me, my mom, my dad, my brother. That was my family, and then you had my aunt and uncle, my gran, my nana, and my two granddads when they were alive as well. And that was more of a very kind of cluster. That was a unit of the family, and it was all there in one place. And when we had family occasions, all of those people would come in the same place. Whereas now, when there's family occasions, it's like me, my mum, my gran, and my brother, and his wife and the child, his kid, their kid, sorry. And then it'll be like with my dad's side of the family, um, me and my brother, and well, me and my brother's family, me and my brother's family, me, my brother's family, my dad's new family, and then like my nana occasionally as well, and then my aunt and uncle are related to my dad. Not both of them. Oh dear. My uncle's related to my dad because they're brothers. Whatever. Let fucking hell. It's all more. It's more kind of like spread out and in pieces, which I was pretty upset by it, I must say, when my parents divorced. Much more so than I let on. That the dissolution of the family, or the spreading out of the family, was a major loss in my life that I haven't really fully explored, I'll be honest, because I'm still like exploring this story from my early 20s, which is not fully processed. So I'll process that, and then I go through like the time after that, and then I got to process what happened when my mum and dad broke up and divorced, and that was another major change that, and I don't think I've ever really fully come to terms with that as such. I still feel like I'm living in the wake of that, because a lot of this stuff is to do with my dad in this room, for one thing. And like, it's sort of, I haven't returned to a sense of normality since that point. And I don't think my mum is finished with it either. I don't think my mum's quite emotionally over it yet. So, yeah. Oh dear. Well, there you go. So, I didn't cover anything I wanted to cover. I was going to talk about another person I met in Ward 10. Well, as an hour's gone by, I'll have to do that on another one. That's just what came out. That's just what came out.